This video is dedicated to one of the most swagnificent, prolific, drone striking leaders of the free world. He was able to successfully dupe so many people and being culturally proud of him that we were able to politically ignore the way in which he's been committing war crimes. I'm not speaking colloquially, I'm talking about real war crimes. No analogy, no simile, no metaphor. I'm talking about prohibited acts according to the Geneva Convention in the United Nations and the different people in the international community about when you do these particular actions, it is a war crime. Cruel treatment, torture, taking hostages, intentionally directing attacks against civilian populations. Ooh, collective punishment. Ooh, saying that you're going to direct attack at a building that's dedicated towards religion or education or art or science, like a hospital. All those are war crimes. In this video, I don't got to dig through the archive too much talking about how he was drone striking predominantly Muslim communities. You see what I'm saying? That was committing a whole bunch of war crimes. We're going to get into what he said last week. He said, as I stated earlier in my post, Israel has the right to defend its citizens against such wanton violence, and I fully support President Biden's call for the United States to support our longtime ally in going after Hamas, dismantling its military capabilities, and facilitating safe return of hundreds of hostages to their families. Notice, he's not talking about the thousands of Palestinians being held hostage over there in Israel. You see what I'm saying? He's talking about the hundreds of Israelis that's being held hostage by Hamas. You feel me? All hostages matter or not? I forgot though. America practiced those same type of unjust imprisonment practices in old Guantanamo Bay, where you hold an individual in proximity of being Arab or being Muslim into being a terrorist, and this means you get to waive their rights, and this means the Geneva Convention war stuff. It don't matter to them. Obama went on to say, but even as we support Israel, we should also be clear that how Israel prosecutes the fight against Hamas matters. In particular, it matters as President Biden has repeatedly emphasized that Israel's military strategy abides by international law, including those laws that seek to avoid at every extent possible the death or suffering of civilian populations. Upholding these values is important to its own sake because it is morally just and reflects our belief in the inherent value. I'm gonna start all over my words right now because I'm thinking, what? What you talking about values and all this, you feel me? When the Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, is saying things like this in reference to Palestinians. You must remember what Amalek has done to you, says our holy Bible. You know what 1 Samuel 15:3 said about Amalek? Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all they have. Spare them not, but slay both man, women, infant, suckling ox, sheep, camel, and ass. Everybody. I know what Obama says literally in the next statement when he's talking about his morals and values. Let's get into it. This is an enormously difficult task. War is always tragic, and even the most carefully planned military operations often put civilians at risk. As President Biden noted during his recent visit to Israel, America itself has at times fallen short of our higher values when engaged in war. And even in the aftermath of 9/11, the United States government wasn't interested in heeding the advice of even our allies when it came to steps we take to protect ourselves against Al-Qaeda. For y'all in the back, what he's saying right there is even America has committed war crimes and that we don't like listening to our allies and that we trying to tell Netanyahu that he shouldn't do this, but he ain't listening to us. Y'all know Obama was the president after Bush, right? So when I'm talking about them drone strikes, you see what I'm saying? Hold on. Let's put this in perspective. During the 9/11 attacks, almost 3,000 Americans were unalived. 4.5 billion deaths and counting in the post-9/11 war zones, and this comes from May of 2023. So we see how a little bit of blood being spilled over here makes it where individuals become bloodthirsty and enraged, and they wage war against an entire region, population, people. You see what I'm saying? That's why America has so much rationale for what Israel is doing, because it's been doing it as well. If you're asking yourself, how could one authorize and help the killing of 4.5 million people and still just sleep next to their beautiful wife and just act like nothing is happening? He gonna tell you the rationale in this next part of this whole statement about the Israel occupation of Palestine. Now, after the systemic massacre of Israeli citizens, a massacre that evokes some of the most darkest memories of persecution against Jewish people, it is understandable that many Israelis have demanded that their government do whatever it takes to root out Hamas and make sure that such attacks never happen again. Just watch this, y'all. Moreover, Hamas military operations are deeply embedded within Gaza, justifying you being able to carpet bomb everything deeply embedded in Gaza, because its leadership seems to intentionally hide among civilians, thereby endangering the very people they claim to represent. But still, the world is watching closely as events in the region unfold, and any Israeli military strategy that ignores that human costs could ultimately backfire. Already, thousands of Palestinians have been killed in the bombing of Gaza, many of children, hundreds of thousands have been forced from their homes. The Israeli government, so we ain't gonna go over that really, you know what I'm saying? When he says that hundreds and thousands have been forced from their home, he talk about the idea of Israel being able to defend itself and deserving the right to do whatever the citizens told them to do. They don't tell us this part in Western media. 1948, the Nakba. I'm country as hell, I'm saying it wrong. But it refers to the mass displacement and possession of almost 1 million Palestinians. You feel me? That literally birthed the region or the state known as Israel. You see what I mean? So when they start talking about the idea of individuals being able to defend themselves, has America ever said that Palestine has the right to defend itself from the 1948 disposition of almost 1 million Palestinians from their land, or almost 20,000 of them were massacred? None? Okay. Words are important, you feel me? Language is very telling, right? We acknowledge that anytime Hamas is talked about, it's always already referred to as a terrorist group that has no legitimacy or no credibility. You feel me? When the Israeli occupational forces got 5 times as amount of terrorist acts and terrorist blood on his hands as Hamas could ever dream of. We also recognize that when President Obama talks about Israel having the right to defend and protect itself, they ain't never talking about the Nakba. They ain't never talking about the thousands of offensive attacks that the Israeli government has done to the Palestinian people, both in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, that they ain't talking about people having the right to defend themselves. This man went on to say, the Israeli government decision to cut off water, food, and electricity to captive civilian population threatens not only to worsen a growing humanitarian crisis, but it could rather harden Palestinian attitudes for generations, eroding global support for Israel, and play into the hands of Israeli enemies and undermine a long-term efforts to achieve peace and stability in the region. When we can acknowledge that before the Balfour Declaration, before the Ottoman Empire and the British and the English, the American society that's gonna put their face in what's going on in that area, Jews and Muslims and Christians was living in harmony and living in peace. We also acknowledge that cutting off food and water and electricity, and you acknowledging that it's to the civilian, the captive civilian population, you just acknowledge like 2 or 3 war crimes in one sentence. I get it though, you gotta stand by your allies. What if President Obama took the same stance as President Jimmy Carter? You see what I'm saying? Jimmy Carter went lost in the sauce of Zionism. Jimmy Carter stood on the side of humanity, at least in this instance.
I hope to accomplish with this book is to move toward that goal. But there's no doubt that within the occupied territories, Palestinian land, that there is a horrendous example of apartheid. The occupation of Palestinian land, the confiscation of that land that doesn't belong to Israel, the building of settlements on it, the colonization of that land, and then the connection of those isolated but multiple settlements, more than 200 of them, with each other by highways on which Palestinians can't travel, and quite often where Palestinians cannot even cross. So the persecution of the Palestinians now under the occupied territories is under the occupation forces is one of the worst examples of human rights deprivation that I know. And I think
even worse though than a place like Rwanda.
Yes, I think yes. You mean now?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I think the impression now of the Israelis, of the Palestinians by the Israelis, is worse than a situation in Africa like the oppression of Rwandans and the Civil War.
I'm not going back.
Western countries like the United States, the UK, and France have been backing the Ugandan and Rwandan countries to be able to go invade Congo and steal coltan. You see right there, that dude trying to play Jimmy Carter, talking about even what's going on in Africa, as if America ain't got their hand over there. But listen, man, free Palestine. Obama, man, you lying. Not only you lying, you so deceptive that you tell the American people to oppose right-wing governments at every turn, but you supporting the right-wing government over there in Israel that's literally terrorizing Palestinian people committing war crimes. But I know, hey, it take one to know one. That's the reason why you standing behind Satan Yahoo doing what he's saying and saying what he's doing. Education is elevation, man. You wild, Obama. You showed us that being a black president is no exception to American imperialism. Amen.